Hi guys, this is Christy. I've been wanting to do one of these videos for a while, and a little something came up today at work where I might have to go part-time, and I felt like today was the day that I make this video to tell you a little bit more about me and about my cancer journey. I'm 32 years old. I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer in 2008. A little over 5 years ago. It was right before my 27th birthday. The great thing is I survived 5 years, which at the time I had an 83% chance of surviving it, and I was totally freaked out by that number. But that's what my odds were, and you know, I've had a really positive attitude the entire time. I've worked through it. I've had multiple surgeries. I was re-diagnosed with stage 4 with a met to my liver in 2011, a month before my husband and I got married, and had surgery, chemotherapy, and everything. Everything was supposedly in the clear, and this past February it came back in both my lungs. So I've worked full-time through the whole thing. My hours were, recently reduced to kind of help out with my chemo schedule. And today my employer talked to me about going part-time, and I would have to COBRA and things like that. So I'm a little bit emotional today. It's the first time that I feel like cancer has gotten to me, or I haven't gotten to my cancer, and it makes me a little upset. I've always thought that I've pretty much had this under control. I have really no symptoms. You'd never know it by looking at me that, I have cancer. I'm overall very optimistic, but this chemo is freaking me out a little bit. I'm having a lot more side effects. I'm on irinotecan and Erbitux, where I have constipation for a couple days, then it kind of eases up, then I get diarrhea. It's not very comfortable, but every other week I feel like a rock star, and every other week I feel like crap. So, I guess it's, give and take a little bit. But those rock star weeks, I'm hoping to work as much as I can, but I don't want to feel like I'm working just to pay my benefits. So it's a little bit hard. I'm going to tell you how my cancer journey started out. Like I said, in 2008, right before my 27th birthday, I was in a fight with my total douchebag boyfriend at the time. And I was having rectal bleeding, and I was like, you know what, you're stressing me out so much, I'm bleeding from my ass. And it was like, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's like, I'm calling your mom, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, you're not going to call my mom at 2 o'clock in the morning, tell her I have rectal bleeding, that's not going to work. So I scheduled an appointment with my PCP, which the only reason I chose her was because she lived on my street and I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I figured, well, hey, anything ever happens, I can crawl to her if I'm ever really sick. So I went to her. She ordered a blood test because I looked pale. I'm like, dude, I'm Irish, I look like this all the time. And my blood results came back a little bit low. My hemoglobin was 9. I told her I knew that's low, but how low is that? And she's like, well, if it was an 8, we'd be doing a blood transfusion. Got me in to see a gastroenterologist. Fast forward a couple tests later, colonoscopy, rectal ultrasound, PET scan. All of those tests came back that I had cancer, that it was there for 5 to 7 years based on the size, and the only symptom I had was bleeding. I really thought it was just hemorrhoids because of stress. I never once thought I had cancer. I've never lost a crazy amount of weight. I've never smoked. I eat relatively healthy, exercise on occasion. I obviously like to do it more often as everybody would, but all in all, I was in overall good health. Luckily, I had absolutely wonderful benefits. Had surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, chemo, radiation, then surgery, then more chemo, had a temporary ileostomy reversed. In that time frame, I got rid of the douchebag, moved back to Pittsburgh, met the love of my life. Greg and I started dating while I was still on chemotherapy. Actually, our second date after the first date, he asked me when he could see me again, and I told him, my next day I have chemo, and he was like, okay. and I was connected to my chemo pump. We went to dinner, and I had ice cream, played mini golf and stuff. It was a lot of fun, and he's, eventually the man I came to marry. I'm very lucky. But, everything was all in good, cancer-free for 2.5 years, rocking it like a little rock star. And then a month before we got married, I was re-diagnosed with it on my liver. Had a liver resection, wound up having a bladder resection. They did a total hysterectomy, so there goes having kids. And then, had more chemotherapy afterwards, continued to work 60 hours a week at the time. I'm in the car business. Was a sales manager, worked crazy hours, but it was always able to work. And now with it being in both my lungs, which was always my biggest fear, just the one day I won't be able to breathe, I won't be able to run 5Ks anymore, and things like that really scare me. This is the first time, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, that I feel like cancer has gotten to me, that I'm not getting to the cancer, and it scares me. So, any words of encouragement, and anybody who's been in the same position, I'd really love your comments below. YouTube can be a great channel. Hopefully there's no dislikes on this. Dude, really, how can you dislike someone with cancer? I mean, for real. But, any little words of encouragement, or, hey, girl, I've been there, you're going to get through this kind of thing. Awesome. I really need some encouragement. Thanks.